Good evening. It is April 19th, 2023, and we are beginning the Platting Board meeting tonight at 6:40. May we please have roll call?
Don Porter.
Present.
Jan Weltzing.
Present.
Ryan Morman.
Present.
Thomas Gould.
Present.
Stacy Wessel.
Present.
Zach Young.
Present.
Sam Laffey.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Okay, so the first item of business is approvals. We have no action summaries, but we have minutes of the meeting of Wednesday, March 1st, 2023. May I have a motion? Sorry. Yes. That's the approvals, sorry. Yes, may I have a motion to approve the minutes? Moved by Jana Wilson and seconded by Mr. Ryan Morman. Any corrections? None, thank you. The minutes are approved. Special order of business. Do we have any disclosures? Okay. Ms. Wessel?
My name is Stacy Wessel, and I do have a disclosure for regarding one of the plats this evening for case number S12711, Bill Russell Subdivision, Tract 1. Currently, I am representing a client that owns vacant land near this property. I do believe that this expansion in this subdivision will financially make the area greater, and thus, since I am selling the land in the area, I do have financial interest that this subdivision goes through.
All right, given that information, may we have a motion to direct Ms. Wessel to participate?
Through the chair, I can make, oh, here we go.
Do we have a second? Excellent. It was motioned by Ms. Weltzin and seconded by Mr. Morman. Ms. Weltzin, would you care to state your motion?
Sure. I motion to direct Ms. Wessel to participate. I will be voting against this motion. I'll be voting against this motion because Ms. Wessel stated that she has a financial interest in the matter going through, and it would be inappropriate for her to vote on this matter.
Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? I do have a question. Is the property that you have in the subdivision in question?
No, it's not. It's across the street.
So do you have, what financial interest do you have in the adjacent subdivision?
Currently, I am a real estate agent for my clients. They own land there. I have listed their land for a certain amount of money, and I receive a commission based on what it sells for.
Across the street, not within this
Yes,
subdivision?
across the street.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion? So I guess then we'll vote. So a vote in the affirmative directs her to participate. A vote in the nay would mean that she would not participate in this case. Please vote.
This is Sam Laffey. I vote in favor of having Ms. Wetzel participate.
Thanks, Sam.
This is Zach Young. and I will be voting against having Ms. Wessel participate.
Thanks, Zach.
So I guess, yes. So the motion fails, so we will direct you to not participate in that case. You'll want to step outside during that case, and then once we're done, you can come back in. Okay? Thank you. Do we have any other disclosures? Seeing none, we will move on. We have the consent agenda, and on the consent agenda, we have one item, resolutions for approval, the resolution of 2023-06 and related case of S-127706. Does anybody want to pull anything from the consent agenda? If seeing none, I would like to have a motion to approve the consent agenda. It has been moved by Mr. Mormon and seconded by Ms. Weltzen. Please vote.
This is Sam Laffey. I vote to approve the consent agenda.
Thanks, Sam. Zach?
This is Maxwell, and I vote to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you.
And that motion passes. Thank you, everyone. We have no old business. We now have new business. Public hearings, starting with case S-12711. May we hear staff presentation? Oh, sorry.
10 minutes.
Oh, well, we just... Go ahead.
Would Ms. Wessel like to be excused?
Oh, is this the... Sorry.
I'll wait just a moment, thank you.
You can, Ms. Wetzel, you can wait out there on the side there. Thank you for the reminder.
Thank you. This is a request to subdivide 12 lots into one tract and vacate the 20-foot alley right-of-way dedicated per Plat P 320. The site is located north of East 11th Court, east of State Street, south of 11th Court, and west of Boston Street. This request is being made to combine the lots into a single tract of land for future development. Municipal reviewing agencies have no objections to the proposed vacation or preliminary plat. 637 public hearing notices were mailed on March 22nd, 2023. As of this writing, no comments were received from the public, and the Northeast Community Council did not provide comment. Utility easements have been requested, and agency comments can be found on pages 2 through 4. The following criteria must be considered in any vacation of public rights-of-way. Criteria 1 is met. The applicant has attached in their application and demonstrates that the rights-of-way are surplus to the current and future public needs. The proposed Bill Russell subdivision retains physical and legal access to East 11th Court to the north, Boston Street to the east, East 12th Court to the south, and State Street to the west. The Traffic Engineering Department states in their comments that they have no objection to the vacation, and with the proposed preliminary plat, the alley is no longer necessary and in excess of municipal need. Criteria 2 is met. The 20-foot alley is not classified on the official streets and highways plan. Criteria 3 is met. The subject right-of-way is not located on the half-mile grid. Criteria 4 is met. The subject right-of-way is not located on the quarter-mile grid. Criteria 5 is met. The vacation will not have any impact on traffic circulation and labeled in the official streets and highways plan. The right-of-way is in excess of municipal need, and the preliminary plat request to subdivide the 12 lots into one tract negate the need for any future alley access. Criteria 6 is met. This vacation will not result in realignment of any existing right-of-way and does not impact existing traffic circulation. The proposed Tract 1 has legal and physical access to East 11th Court, Boston Street, East 12th Court, and State Street. Municipal reviewing agencies have expressed no objection to the request to vacate the 20-foot alley right-of-way within the proposed Bill Russell subdivision Tract 1. Utility companies will have the opportunity to review proposed plat and request easements as necessary. Therefore, staff finds that the right-of-way is in excess of municipal need and recommends approval of this vacation subject to the conditions 1 through 7 on page 6 and 7 of this report. The Planning Department recommends approval of the vacation as well as the preliminary plat and approval of the preliminary plat with the alley right-of-way easement dedicated per plat P320 subject to condition 1, and recommends approval of the plat for 24 months subject to conditions 1 through 7 on pages 6 and 7. This concludes my staff report, and the petitioner's representatives are available, and we do have the petitioner that we can call if there are any questions for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Excuse me. Do we have any questions of staff? No questions. Thank you. At this time, would the petitioner come forward, state your name, and let us know if you'd like to reserve any time for rebuttal. Yeah, green light. You need to get the red light on. Press the talk. There you go.
Oh, is it on? Okay.
There you go.
Good. Okay. Good evening. Through the chair, members of the board, my name is Tony Hoffman. I work with the Boutte Company, and I'm representing the petitioner tonight. With me is the project engineer, Brandon Marcotte, with Triad Engineering, as well as Dick Shoemaker. He's a representative of KidCorp, which is going to be what the lot is going to be used for. So this is a real simple plat. I'm going to keep it really short because we want to focus on the plat tonight. We're not talking about site plan or anything like that. Staff did a real good job of compiling all the information and stating what we're doing. We're just basically creating a single tract that we can develop as a whole for a KidCorp daycare center, which is a much needed asset in Anchorage. This is one of the things that's key for Anchorage's development and maintaining our workforce. The plat is very straightforward. There's going to be some peripheral street development and upgrades, but we expect them to be minimal, but there will be. We accept the staff's conditions as they were written, and I really don't have a lot to add tonight. If you have any questions, I see the time didn't even start, so we're good. Got another 10 minutes. Yeah, that's good. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman. We'll record that you have 8 minutes and 59 seconds for
Okay.
rebuttal.
Okay.
Great. Is there any questions to the petitioner? On the phone? Okay, so hearing none. Thank you for your information. We'll now open the hearing for public testimony.
Thank you.
Anyone wishing to testify, please come forward, state and spell your name for the record. Get on your 3 or 5.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mika Thomas, M-I-K-A-T-H-O-M-A-S. And the plat that they're speaking of, I have property that I'm looking to sell in the area. And my only concern is the traffic going in and out of the area. I just don't want it to affect the sale of the lot. I'm not certain what the setup is going to be as far as the child care center goes, but I am north. I'm off of East 11th. That's where I'm at, and that's really my only concern, just the traffic going in and out. 11th is already a pretty busy street, and I know if a child care center goes there, it's going to be even busier, so I'm just concerned with where the entrance and the exit of the child care center would be. And that's it.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Thomas.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have anyone else that wishes to testify? I don't believe we do. All right, then. One sec. So we'd like to have a rebuttal coming back from the petitioner's representative. You have 9 minutes.
Right. Through the chair, I would, to address that, honestly, we really would need to look at the site plan, but we do know, because the site plan is quite a ways along, and they're actually talking about, we're into the improvement plans now. The site access will be on the west side. Where she's talking about is across the road on the north. There will be some traffic between, parents dropping off kids between 8 and 3. Those are the, they're clustered around between 8 and 10, and then 2 and 3, 2 and 4 at the latest. And at that time, the gates basically close on the property. So there'll be no late night traffic. And, there's always this kind of issue when you talk about schools or daycares. But the way the site is designed, there'll be no traffic that'll be sitting out on the road. There's enough room on site to circulate the traffic. And I would point out, the other component of this is the land is zoned so we could have duplexes. And the impact of that kind of traffic, duplexes on, which don't really require a site plan review or any sort of traffic mitigations like we're going through, would be much greater. So it is a trade-off, and you're still talking about traffic at peak times, but this is in the community's overall view or outlook is a much greater use of the traffic flow, and that traffic is not going to warrant any sort of a traffic analysis. It's not a big school. It's actually very small, so it'll be at peak times, and there will be traffic, but it's not going to be backing up around the block. Well, we can say that with assurance. But again, we're here really to talk about the plat. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
We're good.
Any last questions of the petitioner? Seeing none, this public hearing for this case is now closed. What is the will of the body? May I have a motion? Oh, yes. Excellent. We have a motion from Ryan Moorman and seconded by Ms. Jana Welson. Mr. Moorman, would you care to state your motion?
And through the chair, I move to approve case S12711, the request to subdivide 12 lots into one tract with vacation of a 20-foot alleyway.
And Mr. Moorman, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, I do agree with the staff analysis and move to approve with the 7 department recommendations, 1 through 7.
Do we have anybody else that would like to speak to the motion? Do we have any findings?
I can,
Oh, what was that?
I can make some findings. First I would like to note that there were no negative public comments against this other than the one that we just heard today. Additionally, it seems like even though it's outside of our purview, a very good use of the land for the community, but again, outside of our purview for this discussion. The community council gave no negative testimony or negative commentary, and the reviewing agencies were by and large supportive. I did also hear the petitioner address the concerns brought by Ms. Mika Thomas regarding traffic, and it does appear that the site is quite large and can handle the traffic circulation on the site, and so I think they're going to work through those issues. And I did find it compelling that this is zoned for, could be duplexes, and that would be a lot more heavy traffic than this use. So I'll be voting in favor of this motion.
Excellent, thank you. Any other findings before we vote? Then let's vote.
This is Sam Rafi. I vote against the proposed motion.
Thanks, Sam. That was against, correct?
Yes.
Zach, how do you vote?
I vote in favor of the motion.
Thank you.
That motion has passed. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. We have to move on to may I have a motion for the second portion? It's been moved by Ms. Welton and seconded by Mr. Mormon. Ms. Welton, would you state your motion?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, I move to approve the plat for 24 months, subject to the conditions on page 6 of the staff report, 1 through 7, including A and B and little I and little 2 on page 7 of the staff report. I'll be voting in favor of this motion for the reasons I echoed in the first related motion to this case.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? Very well. Let's vote.
Zach, how do you vote?
In favor.
Sam?
Against.
Thank you.
That motion has passed as well. Thank you. Here is B. Okay. So we'll move on to the next case, S1273. May I have staff presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we just need to wait for Ms. Wessel to return.
Yes, we do. Thank you. Thank you. And thank everyone for the help in keeping me on track. Welcome back, Ms. Wessel.
All right, thank you. This is a request to subdivide one tract into 3 tracts. The petition site is located within the boundaries of both the Bear Valley and Hillside Community Councils southwest of the intersection of Canyon Road and Bonnie Lane Road. There are currently 2 dry cabins on property. The proposed tract boundaries are drawn in a manner so each existing dry cabin is placed on respective tracts A and B. There are no proposed developments within the platted area at this time, and as such, no improvements are being required. However, right-of-way dedication along the eastern and southern boundaries of the platted area will be required as part of this platting action. The 2014 Official Streets and Highways Plan identifies both Bonnie Lane Road and East 140th Avenue as local streets in this area, requiring a minimum right-of-way width of 50 to 60 feet. Given the rural nature of the area, the 25-foot right-of-way dedication shown on the preliminary plat is sufficient for future needs. Further subdivision or dedication of right-of-way on adjacent parcels will result in a total right-of-way width of 50 feet for complete development of these roadways. Dedication of a 20-foot public use easement leading to and generally along Rabbit Creek is being required for future development of the Rabbit Creek Greenbelt per Anchorage Municipal Code, Title 21, Chapter 8, Subsection 040D, Trails. The development of the Rabbit Creek Greenbelt is shown on the following adopted plans. That's the Rabbit Creek Greenbelt Plan, the Area-Wide Trails Plan, the Anchorage Bowl Park Natural Resource and Recreation Facility Plan, as well as the Hillside District Plan. Due to topographic constraints, as well as the need to mitigate wildlife and human interactions along the proposed trail, it is recommended to be a condition of approval to resolve with MOA Planning, MOA Project Management Engineering, MOA Private Development, and the Alaska Department of Fish and Game to determine the final trail alignment so it may be practically constructed to an appropriate standard. Construction of the trail is not being requested of the applicant at this time, but will be required at the time of further subdivision, or will be constructed by the municipality sooner if practical. This preliminary plat appears to generally conform with the petition site's classification, as well as the following policies and goals of the 2040 Anchorage Land Use Plan. That'd be Land Use Policy 5.1, Goal 7, and Goal 8. And given this analysis, the Planning Department does recommend approval of the plat, subject to conditions 1 through 9 on pages 6 and 7 of the staff report. We do have one condition that we would like to have amended should the Planning Board see fit. I have provided the extra supplemental submittal for the board's review, as well as copies for the public to review on what the proposed amendments are. So that would, condition number 2 would read, resolve with on-site water and wastewater the necessary approvals for on-site water and wastewater systems to service the existing cabins on tracks A and B. And then the amendments requested for condition number 3 would read as, resolve with on-site water and wastewater the need to submit plans, data, tests, and engineering reports that substantiates the capability of proposed track C to adequately dispose of wastewater. See Anchorage Municipal Code, Title 15, Chapter 65, Subsection 405 for requirements. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions the board may have. Thank you.
Excellent. Do we have any questions of staff from the board?
I had just one little question, and maybe I missed it, but in most staff reports we get, we are kind of told like how many public comments were sent out, or public notices were sent out, and whether any was received. And maybe I just missed it, but I just see the note that no public comments were received, but I don't see the date of public comments or public notices being sent out, or how many. I might have missed it.
Through the chair, Ms. Welstein, thank you for that. And I do realize that that was probably inadvertently omitted from the staff report. But for the record, on March 22nd of 2023, we did mail out 66 public hearing notices in accordance with the procedures of Anchorage Municipal Code. And we did also notice the Bear Valley Community Council, the Glen Alps Community Council, Hillside Community Council, as well as the Rabbit Creek Community Council. Of those, we did receive public comment from the Rabbit Creek Community Council, as well as a comment from a private citizen. And those two comments have been provided in the staff packet under attachment 3, reviewing agency and public comments.
Okay, thank you.
This is Sam Lappy. I have a question for staff.
Go ahead, Sam.
Thank you. Could you explain in a little more detail what the requirement for this trail is and what, I'm just not understanding why there is a need for a trail that doesn't already exist and we're adding this as a requirement to approving this plat. Has the trail already been planned? Or is it under construction, or is this just a future, this could happen in 50 years project?
Through the chair, so this trail shown on this property has been planned since 1987 through the first adoption of the Rabbit Creek Greenbelt Plan. It was further carried forward and shown in the area-wide trails plan in 1996. And it was also further carried forward on the Anchorage Bowl Park Natural Resource Recreation Facility Plan in 2005, and then additionally carried forward and shown on a proposed trail map of the Hillside District Plan in 2010. And Anchorage Municipal Code does require dedication of trails in accordance with any adopted plans. And in this case, we have 4 adopted plans that show a trail in this location.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Are there any other questions of staff from the board? Go ahead, Mr. Gould.
One of your conditions is a 25-foot dedication for roads on 2 sides of this division, and I saw that in the comments from the right-of-way people, they asked for 30 feet. Could you address that?
Through the chair, there is some conflicting comments. The right-of-way section did submit comments requesting 30 feet, but traffic engineering and private development both requested 25 feet. And traffic engineering and private development, we weigh on their comments heavily when it comes to right-of-way dedication, and they felt 25 feet was appropriate for this situation.
All right.
Thank you. Any other questions of staff? Tom, you might want to get your mic. Very well. May we have a presentation from the petitioner, please?
I'm Stephen Callahan from S4 Group. We agree with the Planning Department's recommendations as well as the proposed amendments to the conditions of approval that were just handed out this evening. We did go to 4 community councils with this project. And also, I'd like to clarify that there is a section line easement on the south side of the property, I believe a 50-footer. And there's also a 33-footer on the east side as well. So there's, potentially plenty of room for a road. And that's it. I'd like to save time for rebuttal.
Okay, so we'll save 9 minutes and 27 seconds for rebuttal.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions of the petitioner from the board?
I just have one. So I guess kind of piggybacking off the previous question. So Michael Walters, a plan review comment from the right-of-way section that says if a right-of-way is dedicated, 30 feet would be the minimum, 25 is not enough. But you're saying was your last comment in reference to that?
Yes, I just want to point out that there was a 50-foot section line easement along the south side of the property and a 33-foot on the east side. So there'd be plenty of room for if we give up 25 feet, there'd be plenty of room for a road.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other questions from the board of the petitioner? Go ahead.
You know, speaking of these section line easements, I saw a lot of discussion in the packet that we got about whether there was an easement and whether there wasn't, and I'm kind of confused by that. Could you address that?
Sure. There's a procedure that was followed. It's a procedure that was established through the ASPLS, Alaska Society of Professional Land Surveyors. They have a procedure in the standards of practice for researching and determining if there is a section line, whether a section line easement exists or not. So we did, at S4 Group, we did our own research and we came up with our own conclusion that there was a section line easement on the east side of the section line on the east side of the property. That there was not a section line on the west side of the east property line. So essentially on the piece of property that we are subdividing, there is no section line easement. Immediately adjacent to it on the neighboring property, there's a 33-foot section line easement. We took our findings and we went to the state of Alaska. They're basically considered the authority for section line easements in the state of Alaska. There's a surveyor there, George Horton. I submitted all my research and my findings to him, and he did an independent, went through the process independently of what I did. And he reached the same conclusion that there was no section line easement on the property that we are subdividing, but there's a 33-foot section line easement on the neighboring property. It's a tedious process.
Any other questions of the petitioner from the board? Thank you, Mr. Callahan. We will now open the public hearing for this case. Would anyone wishing to testify, please come forward, state and spell your name for the record. Go ahead. So are you speaking on behalf of the community council then?
Correct, yes,
Are
sir.
you a member or a
I'm Vice
chair?
President of the Glen Alps Community Council. My name is
Excellent.
Rob Brown,
Rob Brown.
R-O-B-B-R-O-W-N.
Excellent. You'll have 5 minutes.
All right, thank
Please
you.
go ahead.
My name is Rob Brown. I live at 13688 Canyon Road. My property is immediately east of the Mills Trust property. Tonight I'm speaking for Glen Alps Community Council as a Vice President for myself and for Bonnie Kudnahofsky, who lives to the north of me and directly east of the Mills on Bonnie Lane. I'm here to bring you the reality of us as locals who live in this area and know it better than any who will be presenting tonight. I'd like to begin by stating that what is currently known as Bonnie Lane is a road that was built by Donald Roe Haley to access the 3 properties directly to the east of the Mills property. This road is co-opted by the Mills at one time to use for access to their land, and they have done nothing to maintain it. The proposed 25-foot right-of-way on the east side of the property is an absurd notion. The full road could never be built. It would need switchbacks just like the Muni had to install when they paved the entrance to our private road, Bonnie Lane, and to rely on taking our property to finish a road for their development is not right. The first 100 feet of the road drops over 50 feet. It's not possible to put that much fill in a width of 25 feet. Then it turns into a swamp for almost 500 feet. Then at the end of the road, it climbs for almost 100 feet. There is no road that will ever be built that way. Why would you allow a road that can never feasibly be built to be platted? On the west, there is 0 right-of-way proposed, yet there are 2 very fine roads, Laconia and our own lane, which are already platted. Why would the access not be from the already platted western boundary? We submitted to the Planning Department's Dave Whitfield a decision which was approved and signed off on by the Anchorage Municipal Surveyor that there was no section line easement on our property. Why was an opinion by DNR included without any determination from our municipal surveyor saying that there now is a section line easement? Why didn't Dave Whitfield include our concerns in the staff report? I called the municipal surveyor to request a meeting and no one called me back. I requested an official determination from the muni, not an opinion from DNR. Why did Dave Whitfield not include any of our correspondence in the staff report, yet include 2 of the same opinions by DNR? It is litigious at best and total obfuscation of our concerns and a misrepresentation to the Platting Board. The municipal attorney got involved, and yet Dave decided not to notify the Platting Board of this potential conflict. Page 44 of the staff report says the existing cabins on Tract A and B are to have sanitation facilities and approved water and wastewater systems prior to final plat approval. When is that going to happen? What plans have been made to do that? Where are the studies that say this is even possible? How can you prove it without them? This part of Rabbit Creek is very steep, and the trail along the south side of the Mills property is depicted in their drawings, which connects to the 100-foot public use easement on Canyon View, is more appropriate than a trail right next to the south side of the creek. Mark my words, this is among the wildest places in Anchorage. We have bears every day, moose every day, lynx are all over part of this creek, wolverine. We sat at dinner and listened to a moose being killed by bears last year. It's always amazing to me that the people who claim to be interested in wildlife conservation and the environment are the same ones who would want to run a trail right to the heart of a place as wild as this corridor. There's literally a trail 250 feet away from the creek, which parallels it already and runs right next to the Mills proposed trail. On page 22 of the application, S4 admits that they did not provide myself or Carol Ashlock notice of meetings, then goes on to say that we did not provide our address. That is 100% a lie. We clearly demarcated where we lived, and I announced my address. S4's representation of the actual questions that occurred in the community council are inaccurate and absolutely false. Page 20 of the staff report clearly says that no proper watercourse mapping survey has occurred. It clearly states that new or additional mapping is required and must be resubmitted for further review and verification. How can you allow a right-of-way on the eastern boundary without a proper watercourse mapping survey? You should not. Over 1/4 of the drainage from Flat Top passes through this property. The northeast corner of this property is all swamp, and it makes no sense at all to act like it could be an access to a neighborhood of 15 houses. I spoke with Elaine Mills in December of 22. She told me that the worst thing that could happen for her and her husband's vision of this property would be for a public road to go through it. So why are the trustees going against her wishes? I will leave you with the words that the owner of the property, Elaine Mills, asked me to speak for her in front of this planning board in 2016 when she opposed the Lewis and Clark development. She said, I fear how this large number of homes and additional infrastructure will affect the fragile wetlands that extend between the 2 properties. Rabbit Creek runs through my property, and I value the pristine and delicate nature of this particular part of Anchorage. I am also uncomfortable with the large amount of houses being built uphill on my property and accessing the water table for wells. When she referred to the fragile wetlands that extend between the 2 properties, she is referring to the proposed entire northern half of Tract C. And that is one of the many reasons why this plat is wrong, it's ill thought, and why Glen Alps Community Council cannot support this amateurish proposal. And that's all. Any questions?
Okay. Excuse me one moment. Do we have any questions of the testifier from the board?
I mean, I don't have a question, I guess I have a request. Okay, sum up for me. You don't want the trail where it's being shown, but was there a section that you did?
Yeah, it's about right-of-way.
Right, but,
Yeah.
and then you said there was a section that there was good land that could hold the right-of-way?
Well, why is there no right-of-way on the northwest corner? Laconia and our own road are platted right into it. It's not swampy. It's not near as swampy. There is literally, and you won't see it because there's been no watercourse mapping survey, but on the northeast side of Tract C, it's all swamp. And in fact, Lewis and Clark was required to put, just to the north, the development was required to put open space because it's all swamp there. And so why are we platting something that is all swamp? There is literally a stream, a large drainage that comes through there that drains all of Flat Top, and it hasn't been mapped, and you all don't have access to it. So why is it before the board if we haven't done a proper watercourse mapping survey to determine that this straight line, this random straight line that has no basis in the reality of the situation is appropriate?
Okay, and then walk me through when you said that you requested that the muni surveyor make a determination, but then...
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, when Canyon Road was built, when it was paved, okay, we realigned the road. And part of that was determining that Bonnie Kudnahufsky and Frank Mills' property, their 5 acres, did or did not have a section line easement. And so the Muni, as well as DNR, signed off on the fact that there was no section line easement. And we live that way, and we've been living that way, and I've invested money based on that. And the municipal surveyors signed off on it, and in fact, 2 of them in their department signed off on it. And so what I'm asking is that why wasn't that brought before the planning board so that you could at least consider it? Why wasn't the municipal surveyor consultant and say, hey, you guys really made a mistake 7 years ago, 6 years ago. What's going on with this? Do you approve of this? Why wasn't it brought before their consideration? My lawyer is Bill Falsey. Bill Falsey has been speaking with the municipal attorney about this, and she notified him of that. Why is that on the staff packet? Why was it left out? And that's what I'm saying. I'm not disputing this, as the petitioner described. I'm not, it is a complicated process, and there are old records, and I'm not necessarily disputing that, but I'm saying, wouldn't it be appropriate to do this? And it's just a symptom of the amateurishness of this whole thing, and why it shouldn't be considered before the planning board until these other things, including this, are properly dealt with and properly explained to you all.
That answers my questions. I have questions for staff, but I can wait until we're at that point.
So how
I
about
have one phone.
Go ahead on the phone.
Now, just to clarify your perspective, is it not the subdivision here itself that's the issue? It's the means of access through Bonnie Lane that's the problem, or am I misinterpreting what your objection here is?
So your question is about access to Bonnie Lane, to Canyon?
Well, what I'm asking is his objection to the subdivision because of the means of access that have been provided already, which look like it's through Bonnie Lane, which is a problem, versus the other trail? I'm just trying to get some clarification on it. It sounds like it's not as much a problem of this should occur. It's whether this is the correct means of access, or am I missing something here? Is it something that he feels as though it shouldn't go through whatsoever?
Did you get
I
the question?
apologize. It's hard for me to understand. Is my objection about the right-of-way or the trail?
And I'm going to paraphrase. Do you object to the right-of-way dedication of Bonnie Lane?
Oh, well, it's inappropriate where it's located, yes. There are other access points on the northwest corner. And the reality of that situation, if you were to look at where they're proposing this straight line road, it's just not doable. They're relying on us to have a platting action in the future to make their road complete. And I don't think that's appropriate, especially for the people that might buy Track C of their property. Why are we relying on the other neighbors to complete your development? And is that going to prevent it from being developed? And is that going to affect the public access to it? There's plenty of good access on the northwest side, and there's not as much swamp, and it's a lot easier to build, and it's already platted. And that's what I'm objecting to, is that, and there's a lot of other things. Safety is another one, but mainly it's just an inappropriate placement for a road.
Any other questions of the testifier?
Yes, I have a question. So are you asking to dedicate right-of-way along the western boundary as well as Bonnie Clad?
Instead of Bonnie Lane. Yeah, I mean, if the Mills would have come to us and talked to us, I did try to reach out to the Mills. We have had a great relationship in the past with Elaine, and I did speak with the daughter, Sarah, and I know their grandson who lived there, and I attempted to broach this subject where we as neighbors could form some kind of HOA and agree that we would use this in the collective manner that we have for decades. And so to do this, to do it this way, it's purely unneighborly, but it's also just unfeasible. If you were to go out and just actually walk that property or have an accurate watercourse mapping survey, it would show that there's a ditch, a deep ditch, there's lots of water, it's flowing year-round. There's a waterfall, there's a 4-foot waterfall right next to the road. And it's just absurd to act like it's just going to be an easy straight line road.
Okay.
Mr. Gould, go ahead and turn your mic on.
You're speaking for the community council, is that correct?
I speak for the community council, I speak for Bonnie, and I speak for my family, yes.
All right. Did this issue come up in front of the community council? Did you discuss it in the community council?
Yes.
Did you vote on a resolution?
We did not vote on a resolution.
So was there any documentation of that was sent out to anybody?
As far as?
I mean, you've got a lot of objections here, and this is the first I've heard about it. I haven't seen any other comments of any kind, and I'm kind of curious as to how that could happen.
As far, why there's no written comments, is that what you're asking?
Well, yeah, that's part of it. I mean, I didn't see anything in their emails from anybody saying this is wrong. I didn't see any resolutions from the community council. I didn't see any notes from you, for instance, anything like that.
Yeah.
So I don't
The staff packet came out a week ago, and I was taken far aback by it to see that there had been no WMS, to see that there was no well and septic when they're saying that. I mean, this is the third development that we've dealt with in 7 years around us. Lewis and Clark, Canyon View Estates, and now this one. And it is a development, and I mean, this is how developers work. They slowly work their way in, and this is the beginning of that. And I just, those other two developments, Lewis and Clark, Holtquist Homes, Canyon View, they had to do well and septic studies. Why are we acting like these dry cabins, which are non-conforming? Yes, I agree, but why are we acting like they don't need the same things that everyone else has had to do? And that's very frustrating. And then, you know, the way that the road is just a straight line that goes over a salmon-bearing creek. I mean, why are we just drawing a straight line that way? And so that's, you know, I was really taken aback that these things that we expect and we had done with these other developments weren't done. And so, yeah, I've been slowly stewing about it until this thing came out. So if that's a fault, I apologize.
I do have another
Okay,
question.
go ahead.
For you. This is regarding the trail. I had discussed that there were no trails in the vicinity, but I did hear you say that there is a trail parallel to Rabbit Creek through this property. Okay.
Yeah, so Lewis and Clark was required to put a trail in.
Okay.
They have a trail platted. That's to the north. Yep. To the south, above Rabbit Creek, there is Section 36 Park, which is a square-mile park. Okay, it's a square mile of open space. There is a section line that connects to that Section 36 Park, and I hike it. There's people here that hike it. It's a well-known trail. It's maintained, and it goes down and cuts down and then joins in with a 100-foot setback that was required of Canyon View. And so the access, this Rabbit Creek Greenbelt is already done. It's just not to the way that the people that dreamed it up did with their straight lines along a creek, and that's why we're hearing so much about trails, I believe. And so, but it is a trail, a very well used trail. It's in hemlocks. It's gorgeous. It has a much better view. The relief from the creek is much better, and you don't have the animal interaction.
Okay, so there are trails on the property that were
Along the south line, where the mills, where the proposed trail is in their application, yes, it is right there, or slightly right above it on Section 36. Yeah, okay. It's not demarcated, you know, like on a tree or anything, so I can't tell exactly where it is, but definitely it's very close to that.
Anyone else?
Well, just to clarify, so, but you're also saying that this would be the better right-of-way, where that proposed trail is?
No, I'm speaking, oh, you're talking about the west trail.
Yeah.
That west trail, yes, ma'am.
Would be the better
Yes.
right-of-way?
Mhm.
And just looking at the packet, Rabbit Creek Community Council did do a comment, and they indicated that the north side would be more suitable for a trail. And that's consistent with what you're saying, I believe.
No, they're describing a trail that runs along the creek on the north side, and proposing 2 bridges that would allow you to go back and forth and run into animals on each side.
Which is, okay, not consistent with what you're saying then.
No, this one is actually on the south property line, which is drawn in that dotted line that borders Section 36 Park, not bordering the creek.
Roger. Thank you.
I don't see any other questions. Let's have any other testifiers that would like to come forward. Let us know if you're a private citizen or a member of a community council.
Yes, my name is Greg Kuiper. I live at 14341 Echo Canyon Road.
Could you spell your last name, please?
Yes, it's Gregkuiper.
Excellent. And you're a private citizen?
Yes, I'm also a member of the community council, but I'm speaking on behalf of myself. I was at the community council meeting. We took minutes of the meeting. They're available. I don't know, you said, Ms. Welton, that there were some comments from the community council in the packet. I didn't see those. But what I wanted to bring to your attention was the development that that was approved for the Canyon View Estates. There were drainage work that was done in that to make that land, I think, to try to make it more suitable for development. We'll see this spring how well that was effective or not. I will say that I was with another gentleman here, and we inspected test wells on that property that were overflowing with water. There's springs all over that property, and your platting board, you guys approved that. And the city, the on-site well and septic, they approved all those test wells that were overflowing with water for well and septic. It's incredible to me that happened in this city. You know, it's unbelievable. But anyway, aside from that, getting back to this project, it should be noted that the drainage work that's been done to make that more doable has affected the Mills subdivision, and we need a new water course mapping survey to see how all that water, Rob talked about, water running right underneath Bonnie Lane there. It's substantial. I walked that area, and I've walked that part of the property, the Mills subdivision, and it's very wet. It's a concern of mine. Another big concern is that there's a 25-foot right-of-way that would cross Rabbit Creek and an anadromous fish stream. That's incredible considering the slopes in that area. I hope you guys can do better. I hope you guys will protect our area. It's considered rural. We live in Anchorage. This is the Anchorage Platting Board. We are a city. We're a city. We're bordering a great wilderness area. I value that wilderness area, and I trust that you guys will do the right thing in protecting it. That's your job. And do the service for us, citizens. We need you to do that. It's very important. You need to protect the water. You need to protect the accesses. I would like to see a trail, a 100-foot right-of-way, 100-foot public use easement was what was required of the Holtquist subdivision, the Canyon View Estates, the Rohaley property that was approved. I would like to see a 100-foot public use easement for a trail that follows the trail. One other thing is that it's a very unique geological thing that happens. Rabbit Lake floods and it changes the channel of the creek every 35 years. I don't know if you guys are aware of that. That creek flows through the subdivision.
Your time has expired.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions of the testifier?
I just wanted to confirm which community council you're from, because the community council notes I was referencing was the Rabbit Creek Community Council.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm from the Glen Alps
The
Community
Glen Alps,
Council.
okay. And there was a presentation at that community council.
There was a presentation by S4 Group at our last community council meeting in January, and there was a lot of public comment and a lot of input by members of our community and the Rabbit Creek Community Council, and we have minutes that are available publicly for that
And were
on our
those-
website.
And those probably weren't submitted to the, because we don't have them in our packet, so I'm guessing we don't. didn't
I
get
don't
them.
know why that,
Yeah,
Through the chair, we had not received any comments from Glen Alps Community Council on this case.
okay, thank you. But by and large, folks were concerned?
a great deal, yes, there was quite a bit of concern about, we've had, like Rob said, we've had other developments in our area, and we have people who, we live in one of the most gorgeous areas in the world. Of course, we have a lot of people who are concerned about, developments that are happening in our area, yes. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody else that'd like to come forward and testify? Let us know if you're a private citizen or a representative of community council, and you state your name
Hello,
and spell
my
your
name
last
is
name.
Gail Morrison, Gailmorrison. I live at 8600 Spenlove Drive, a couple stones throw from this area, the proposed plat. You cannot make a decision without a watercourse mapping survey. The road on the east side is an absurd idea. It's a swamp. The development to the north had to put in open space because of the swamp. I recommend the plating board make it open space and put the road on the northwest side. There is no access the way it is drawn. It's just a line. Why are we plating a road across a salmon-bearing stream with no environmental impact studies? Why are there no well and septic studies for the 2 cabin parcels? You can't make a decision on this plat without those, and you can't approve one without them. Developing a trail along the creek will destroy the wildlife corridor that exists there. It will increase dangerous interactions with bears. I am sure you remember the hiking trail that was built along a wildlife trail along Turnagain Arm. When a family met a bear, 2 people climbed trees to survive. 1 person died from the bear mauling because the trail was built along a wildlife trail. There is a perfectly good trail and a 1 square mile park right next to it. How many trails do we need? There already is fully platted access to the Rabbit Creek Greenbelt using the Section 36 Park, the section line, and the 100-foot Canyon View easement. This is not a You can't just draw a straight line on this land. There's too much slope, there's too much water, there's too much wetlands, there's too much swamp. It needs much more consideration and environmental engineering than what S4 Group has done. No neighbors have been consulted by the Mills Trust. And I sit on the HALO board. There was no mention of this plat going through. There was no presentation. And we stay pretty up on things. But there was no presentation. Sarah Mills has denied a right-of-way would exist to neighbors, and Mrs. Mills said it would be the worst thing possible. It would also be a public safety issue, as the road is remote, would be unmonitored, and it would allow people to come down and party, have campfires, burn down the hillside. We have been through 3 large subdivision plays in our neighborhood for over the last 7 years. This is by far the most poorly thought out and the most detrimental to the land and the community. Thank you.
Thank you for testimony. Do we have any questions of the testifier? Thank you for your testimony. Would anybody else like to come forward? You can lean the microphone down to you.
I'm sorry, what?
There you go. You can lean, you did it. Would you state your name and...
Oh, yes. Okay, one moment.
And are you speaking on behalf of yourself or community council?
It's just me this time.
All right, you'll have 3 minutes. Spell your last name, please.
Yes, that's, my name is Joan Priestley, Priestley, and I'm scrolling through the application to show you what I want to talk about. Okay. I live immediately north of Upper DeArmond Road. I look at the Lewis and Clark subdivision, which in turn is right above the Mills proposed subdivision. I just want to bring your attention first to point 1A on page 56 of the application from the Rabbit Creek Community Council letter that says regarding possible concerns about bear concentrations along the creek, this portion of Rabbit Creek is not anadromous, which I suppose is the Latin word for bear country. That statement is categorically not correct. My friend Carol Ashlock owns the property immediately east along Rabbit Creek of this subdivision, and she has a little ring apparatus that looks at Rabbit Creek. She sends me photographs of bears and other wildlife all the time that traverse her property along the Rabbit Creek side and on the north side. Now, they don't turn around and go back at the edge of her property. They just continue on down what's called the Wildlife Corridor, which extends along Rabbit Creek on the south side of the Mills property and continue wherever they're going to go. So in addition, the development of Lewis and Clark immediately above has put more pressure on that wildlife corridor and compressed it somewhat. So there's even more wildlife coming through all the time. So I would just also bring your attention to point 5, I think it was, on page 58, that which states things rather well. There does not seem to be a rational nexus for the plat applicant to brush or construct the trails or construct bridges, given that the mills have only 3 lots and does not require any other infrastructure. I mean, in addition, this is a trail along the southern side is going to be like a trail to nowhere, because Carol owns property on both sides of Rabbit Creek. And she's here tonight. She may address this, but I know that she has no intention or interest of allowing an easement through her property. So that's the end of the trail. She asked us to look at her property on occasion, and we can't traverse Bonnie Lane Road because the glaciation has just, it's impossible to cross it there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions for the testifier?
Yeah, it's just a hopeful fantasy that this trail will ever connect to Chugach State Park.
Okay. Thank you for your testimony. Anybody else?
My name is Bern, B-E-R-N, Davis. I live at 13010 Stemp. I'm a member of the community up here. I would like to concur with Mr. Brown and Mr. Kuiper. When they changed the road on Canyon, when they made the new corner, they actually made it higher, which made the Bonnie Lane steeper. You could bring in literally thousands of yards of fill, and it's still going to be steep. I've been in there a number of times with a plow rig, and I can tell you I've taken some serious pucker factor rides down that hill. When you get to the bottom of the hill, there's only one word. It's wet. It's wet year-round. The water flows. It never stops. That's really, I would believe that would be a very poor choice for a road. And when you get to the creek, when you get to the end of Bonnie Lane, it drops, and I mean probably another 100 feet. It's whatever you do there, if you're going to try and put in a road, it's going to be very, very expensive. We are getting hammered with far too many people up there. We don't have the infrastructure to support the amount of people up there. We're getting we're getting literally inundated with the Lewis and Clark should have been 5-acre lots. They're down to 1.25 acres. They said they were going to save 80% of the trees. 80% of the trees are gone. We're having nothing but problems. The road is tore up. Upper Yarmouth is a mess. We've had nothing but heavy truck traffic on that, and I've seen trucks personally, that I know personally, have been seriously overloaded. I've seen them when the road breakup is on, and I've seen them with heavy trucks on those roads too. They just seem, it's just nonstop chaos up there since they've started these projects. So I would urge you to use a little discretion on what you allow up there. But Bonnie Lane would be a very, very poor choice. I would urge you to go up there and take a look at it. The new road, the new connection where Bonnie Lane hooks into Canyon is a mess. And if it's really icy, you could take a heck of a ride. And I'm just estimating probably a 50-foot drop. It's not a good choice for a road. In fact, it's poor right now the way it is. I don't know what you could do to fix it. Anyway, that's all I have.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there any questions of the testifier? Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Would anyone else like to testify?
Hi.
State your name, spell your last name, and let us know if you're a representative of yourself or the community council.
Sure, thanks. My name is Beth Rosenberg. Last name is Rosenberg, and I'm here representing myself.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you to all of you. I know this is a challenging situation, but I would like to propose that you deny the request to subdivide the 3 tracts, and that this is a good example of exactly why we as private citizens need you, the Platting Board. I work for the Department of Fish and Game. I'm a biologist. I'm here as a private citizen, though, very familiar with the issues of the statutory anadromous waters catalog and our own code, the wildlife corridor in that area. And I think in looking at this, there's a lot of information that the Platting Board does not have yet in this area. There is so much money to be made in developing this small corridor, and we've seen, again, I will write up details for you from a biological perspective. I think there's so much money to be made in this area. We've seen perhaps some oversights when it comes to certainly looking at the anadromous waters catalog, Rabbit Creek and Little Rabbit Creek. We know they're anadromous systems. They're protected under that statute. We know from our city code that this is an important wildlife corridor. I think it would behoove the Platting Board to hold off on this subdivision until you have some more information, because there's not, certainly with respect to water and with respect to both the anadromous system and all of the wastewater concerns from the other 2 subdivisions that are currently not resolved, I don't think you have enough information and would be perhaps vulnerable to the pressures of the developer's side without the biological concerns. I wonder, for example, when we're talking about the right-of-way, as it's been expressed, the 3 tracts that you're talking about in addition to roads and easements, imply future developments that are concerns. Again, you'd need that watercourse mapping survey, and you'd need to refer to the AS 1605871. You have a designated anadromous system downstream concerns, and also something like moving from 25 feet to a recommendation of 30 feet. I would just want to know from the Muni, that's a good example of what's the biological basis for that expansion by 5 feet. That's a good example of one small example of there is not enough information. I don't know what that could possibly be based on. In any case, there's a lot of details to discuss, and I'll write them up. I would just encourage the Platting Board from a Fish and Wildlife perspective. You don't have enough information yet. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Would you do me a favor and
Yes, sir.
tell us what an anadromous stream is?
Of course. It's a salmon stream. Spawning salmon their natal streams are freshwater. They return out to the salt, and then upstream spawners move into Rabbit Creek and Little Rabbit Creek, which is why it's designated 24760-10320 in the catalog. I am a bear biologist, but I work closely, obviously, with the salmon fisheries biologists and commercial fisheries. I'm well familiar with the concerns of development in and around a salmon stream, and I'm not even proposing that this is a good or a bad idea. What I'm proposing is I don't think in this one really narrow system that's very saturated, you have enough information to push development through in the way that's being proposed.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the testifier? Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you so much. May I ask one question?
I'm sorry?
May I ask one question? As someone who's unfamiliar with the process, I'd like to submit more, actually maybe I'll discuss offline.
Yeah, we'll be deciding this tonight one way or the other as far as approval. Any other that would like to testify? Please come forward. Tell us your name. Spell your last name, please.
I'm sorry, I've not been very well, so attending tonight was very difficult for me. My name is Carol Ashlock. I think a couple of people have made reference to me and my property, although I was not one of the 60, and I don't know who those people are that were notified, because none of us were. Nobody that I know around there was. My address is 13921 Bonnie Lane Road. Some of you I recognize. I've been before this board before, and there's some newer members also. I'm the one at the bottom of the Bonnie Lane. I'm the one that's maintained Bonnie Lane. I've been there a little while, around 25 years, something like that. I'm the one with the dozer. I was the one was concerned about the glaciation that was so severe, the water runoff, that quarter of flat top that comes down. So it comes down across our properties, and then, of course, the mills as well. You know, the animal trails don't change. It doesn't matter what you put in. They come across, no matter where you are. My property is on both sides of the creek. This proposed trail, people back at the very back, some of them from Rabbit Creek, other areas that have pushed a trail all the way up to Rabbit Lake all this time. It'll be underneath my bathroom window in my bedroom. And all the public coming in, aside from the people that show up occasionally with fires and all kinds of other things. Of course, we have a trail, and it's from the ocean to Rabbit Lake, when it's not flooding, which it flooded 50 feet from the creek up to my home before this last time. But that goes through McHugh Park and McHugh Creek. That's already there. So anyway, I'm that same person. I'm directly across from the mills. I sat with Dr. Mills I don't know how many times and talked about their desires for the land and what their concerns were about the water. And I'm not just talking about swampy water to step in. I'm talking about, you'd think it was a regular little river or creek, some of them going across Bonnie Lane, etc. By myself, my partner, we have completely maintained Bonnie Lane for the last 25 years. I'm the one with the dozer. I'm the one that's brought the D3 in. I'm the one that's plowed that road in the snow every year. and I haven't gotten a nickel from anybody on anything else. For over almost 25 years, every time I see Elaine Mills, she admonishes me not to pave that road, not to develop, and of course I'm not there because I want to do that. I have great concerns about these things, these wannabes that want to put bridges over the areas at the end of Bonnie Lane. The west side is the side where the roads are existent, and also, if you look at Bonnie Lane, if you look at those roads that go directly to Upper DeArmond and go directly to Rabbit Creek, access already there, those roads are like this. Bonnie Lane is now like this. It was steep, but whoever came in, I think, with the idea of this project and elevated it with 16 tons of gravel and 50 feet, it put a switchback, and then some genius put asphalt on there, so it's like goose spit.
So
very dangerous.
Your time has run out.
Thank you. Do you have any? Are there any questions?
Tell me, do you live on lot 4 then? What do you live on tract A proposed? Where do you live?
No. If you go down, okay. The Mills property sits on the eastern boundary, where Messina, Cox Road, the other 2 roads that Rob mentioned, who lives next door to me. I'm below him. I'm below all these people, so it all comes down to me and the Mills. And on the east side is Bonnie Lane. I'm east of Bonnie Lane. I'm that approximate 2 acres at the bottom. And when you saw Hillquist's maps, there was always one house. It's always my house. It's always my house on there.
Okay.
Okay, do you understand? And then some of the land is on the south side of Rabbit Creek, which is why putting something on the north side is ludicrous.
Understood. Thank you. Do we have any questions of the testifier?
We've seen a lot of moose kills too, constantly. There's a way of living and being there, I just want to say. Even our cars, how you are outside, you're no cookies in the car, you never do any of that. Trash, I take all my trash. I haven't been able to get mail because I'm on a private road. There's a way of being, and we all work together on that. And we did with the Mills until I think the son's doing something else with the trust. And Elaine Mills is still sharp as a tack. I just want to mention that. All right, any questions? I'm sorry, any questions?
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you very much. Please give this serious consideration. The same engineering group has done all 3 of these, and they don't do due diligence. That's part of the problem. And Gail Morrison is a cartographer, by the way, so she knows with where she speaks quite well.
Do we have anybody else that wishes to testify? Please come forward, state your name, spell your last name, and let us know if you represent yourself. We're going to need, okay.
Pardon?
We'll need that microphone, thank you.
I'm Diane Holmes, speaking on behalf of the Rabbit Creek Community Council.
You'll have 5 minutes. Well, are you a president of the community council?
No, I'm speaking on behalf of them. The co-chair is not available. So
okay, you'll have 5 minutes.
I've been designated. The council received direct input from members of 3 adjacent councils for our letter to you and staff. And I want to clarify something that's just been said. I've been told there are no salmon upstream from Hillside Drive. And no path will cross private property. This plat provides unparalleled opportunity for non-motorized trails to link parks and other trails upstream and downstream along Rabbit Creek, as well as connecting undeveloped parks to the north and south, which are Half Park and Section 36. This is how our pedestrian network gets developed with each new subdivision, and that's per policy 55 of our 2020 comp plan. There are a few trails we would like, details we'd like to clarify with you. One question is in regards to the north-south easement that goes from 140th northward to Rabbit Creek, actually north of the creek. Can you confirm that this easement will connect to the stream side path? We believe that the undeveloped land, Laconia Drive, which is between Half Park and Mills Plat, may go almost to the stream, but it isn't clear if we will need a transition easement to reach the stream side pathway. And now, regarding condition 4 of your staff report, it lists a minimum of 20 feet easement, generally along the creek. But with the challenges of geography, private property, and stream setback requirements, it's likely that the trail eventually will need to wander in a wider easement, but the tread will probably never be more than 2 feet. Actually, Title 21, 08, 040, D1, and E4 says at a minimum of 20 feet for access to community use areas and the Chugach State Park. This section of code also prefers the right-of-way dedication rather than easements. Please confirm the easement can be wider as needed per code. And last, the staff recommends a width on the west side of the Mills property, north-south easement, should be a minimum of 20 feet, which is likely code. We have originally asked for 50 feet due to the steep slope near the south end and the need to plan for a switchback trail, which requires room so hikers won't cut straight down the line, down the hill. Is the developer amenable for a wider easement? The other alternative is a long, expensive, and less permanent set of box steps, which is, I believe, in my letter, my personal letter in your packet. Now, I would like to take off my community council hat and put on my personal hat and ask, is it really necessary to require utilities, on-site utilities for the 2 dry cabins? Because we have people in Bear Valley in the same situation, and people are living there. So I think it is a bit much to ask this of those 2 dry cabins. And I'm happy to, I would like, this is a map that I had printed out today that shows the connections. This was this, can I pass this to you?
Yeah, go ahead and bring it up and we'll look at it. You can start with Mr. Gould. Could you explain the purpose of this map?
Yes, I will. You'll see just barely the western edge of the Mills property on the left-hand side of the photograph, and the trail from the easement that we have asked for and the staff's agreed, that goes from 140th northward down a steep slope to the creek, which you can barely see, but you can tell it's very steep, and then eventually to Laconia, along Half Park. And then to the west is 140th, which will be on the Mills property eventually, will probably be built. And although it isn't totally developed right now, it goes to one of the main trailheads of Rabbit Creek Greenbelt, which I've been involved with for 20 years.
Give us just one moment, please. Pardon? One moment, please.
Sure. This is just to show how many connections can be made.
Thank you. It's Sam and who else is on the phone? Zach and Sam, I'm sorry, she passed around a map of kind of an aerial photograph, and unfortunately can't share that online.
Would it someone to email or text the photo of the map for me just so I have clarification?
This is Sam, no problem, thank you.
Do we have any questions of the testifier? Sam or Zach, do you have any questions for the testifier?
I don't. This is Sam.
No.
Okay. Thank you for your testimony. Do we have anybody else that wishes to come forward and testify? Seeing no more that wish to testify, could the petitioner please come forward and use their rebuttal time? If we haven't seen you before, maybe you could tell us your name and spell your last name, please.
Thank you. Craig Bennett with S4 Group, B-E-N-N-E-T-T, petitioner's representative along with Steve.
Thank you. Go ahead. You have 9 minutes and 14 seconds.
I think I can resolve most of the concerns stated tonight. Start off with, this is 3 tracts on a total of 80 acres. There's no development being proposed with this, and this is just for the Mills family to separate among their children. Some of the community council confusion is we went to 4 different community councils, but this parcel is in the Hillside and Bear Valley Community Council, but we also went to the Rabbit Creek and Glen Alps, so their minutes weren't included because they were outside the area, even though Rabbit Creek did present or did submit a letter on the trail. Start with the trail location. We are still working with planning and other muni departments on the actual location of that trail. There is an existing trail, like Mr. Brown stated, along the south side of the property, but the Hillside District Plan and other plans show a trail north of that, closer to the creek, and we are still working with planning for where that trail is going to be located, or is it going to be located on the existing trail, but that will need to be worked out before the plat records. There was comments about the WMS watershed mapping, and that's a typical requirement, and comment 8 refers to that needs to be signed off, so that has to be done, and typically that's done in the summer when there's streams, so before the plat can record, that needs to be verified with watershed. Septic, same thing, that needs to be resolved with on-site. I believe comments 2 and 3 refer to that, so those issues will need to be resolved before we can record a plat. And the 25-foot right-of-way dedication is because rural roads, that's what they call, the half width is 25 foot, and that's what private development asked for, so we were planning on dedicating it, but no improvements in it. And I'll pass it off to Steve. I think that was most of them.
I have a question for you.
Oh, yes.
You said you're still working on the proposed trail location. I mean, did you consider putting the road, the right-of-way on the northwest boundary line?
So there's no development with this. Once someone comes in, say, 100 years in the future and wants to develop C and build homes on it, at that time they would need to come in and propose right-of-way that will meet code and service the proposed whatever would be lots going in. So at this time, only the south and east sides are being asked for by the muni. So that's why we're dedicating them.
So you don't have an objection to it being on the northwest side?
Well, there is access up there already. I believe the northwest side touches that right-of-way. Mm-hmm. So there's no need to dedicate to anything there's already a right-of-way up there. So if a road ever comes in, it would probably come off up there depends on the development plan. If anyone ever, I don't foresee it in the near future, but
okay.
I guess there's no need to dedicate to nothing or no plans for anything. Did I answer?
Please continue with your rebuttal.
All right, Steve.
Stephen Callahan with S4 Group, Callaghan. We've had some discussions internally with Municipality Manager's Planning Department regarding the location of these trails. We do plan on coordinating with the state of Alaska regarding anadromous streams and, of course, bears. We do realize that is a concern. We also need to coordinate this with Parks and Recreation for their input as well. So the trail location has not been finalized yet. And as part of the plat, hopefully we can get that resolved. It may end up that trail does not go next to Rabbit Creek. It may go somewhere else. So that is a possibility. We do realize that there is concerns with people walking along the creek and erosion, bear encounters, etc. And of course, we are aware of the fact that there is basically no development setback along the creeks as well. So any development that takes place will have to take place, 50 feet or so from the creek. That's all. Thank you. Thank you.
Do we have any questions from the board of the petitioner? Mr. Gould?
We had a lot of comments about it, a new road that was proposed or shown on the drawing. Could you speak to that about, I don't know, I heard a lot about steepness and about how you might need switchbacks and how it goes through a swamp, lots of fill. Could you speak to that?
Sorry. Yes, I believe referring to Bonnie Lane, that existing drive that's on the east side, that's not being changed, that's being left as it is, just right-of-ways being dedicated over it to make it legal where it goes onto Mills property. Right now on Mills property, Bonnie Lane goes onto Mills, but there's no easement or dedication, so this will just make it legal for people to drive on it with a right-of-way dedication. And if there was ever any improvements for a road, they would have to be built to municipal standards, whatever that would be. Did that answer it?
I'm more concerned about the objections to what the road would be like. I mean, I heard a lot of talk about thousands of yards of fill and about unsuitable property, unsuitable ground, those kinds of things. Maybe there's alternatives, I don't know. But if you could kind of think about that a little bit.
Yes, sir, through the chair. If a road would be built, there would need to probably be fill. There would probably be peat needing to be excavated out, but at this time there is no road improvements. And if you look at the conditions, if there ever is development here, a road would have to be built, and it would have to be built to appropriate standards. So yes, it would be difficult to build a road to standards, but if there was development, there would have to be a road built to standards.
One more question.
Yes, sir.
You talked about the reason for this platting action is because they're trying to split the property up between the children, is that right?
Yes, sir. So Elaine Mills owns the property, and I believe two of her daughters, maybe two of her children, she is giving each of them a tract or something to that effect. So out of the 80 acres, I believe each daughter is getting 5 acres. This was their old, I guess, when they were weekend camping place when they were children. And they're just trying to separate it out for each child.
Zach or Sam, do you have any questions for the petitioner's representative?
I do not. Thank you, though.
I have one quick clarification. My understanding, what I'm hearing from the petitioner, is that the current reasoning behind this subdivision request is to subdivide an 80-acre parcel into 3 parcels so that each of the daughters of the family can own a part of it, and that there is not going to be a need or reason for a road to be put in beyond what is currently there. and that is not on the agenda. Is that accurate?
Something about being platted for the children.
Zach, I'm sorry, you're going to have to speak a little closer and more clear to the microphone.
Okay, can you hear me clearly now?
We'll give it a try. Try to be as clear as possible.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me clearly now?
That's better.
Okay, just to clarify, the reason for this subdivision request is to divide the 80-acre parcel into 3 separate plots for them to be inherited by the 3 children of the petitioner. That being said, this subdivision constitutes no reason for a real road or expansion of the current road that exists on Billie Jean Lane to be put in. So if that were to occur, it would have to be through separate action, not related to this specific case. Is that accurate?
Yes, if there was future development, we'd have to come back to the board and present a new subdivision with road plans and everything that would entail.
Okay, that is all I was curious as to. I'm just making sure that this subdivision does not entail having an expansion or a change to the road that is currently already there.
Correct.
It would just be a reclassification of the easement.
Thanks, Zach.
I do have a question. Where is the best place to build on Track C? If, and access, if they were to just build on Track C? From what I'm hearing, it's very swampy in the northeastern corner.
I don't believe there's any plans to build on Track C. I think it was more of, that's just the remainder of the 80-acre parcel. It's like 65 acres. So there's probably many places that you could build a single home, but that's all you could build on it is a single home. And if you built a home on it, it would kick in all the requirements of well and septic, providing real access to it, whether it's a driveway or an updated road, and it would have to go through the full permit process.
And Track B is going to be accessed through Bonnie Clad up the steep, through the right-of-way dedication up the steep area. That's
Track B right now is just walk-in.
okay.
No, there's no vehicles to it. If they were to develop it, they would have to build a road down East 140th Avenue to get to it.
So can I ask a quick question to staff? It seems like the majority of the public's contention is the location of this right-of-way, and it seems like maybe Bonnie Lane exists in some form or fashion, just not built to specifics of development and whatnot. It's not improved all the way. Is there a reason, or is it not possible that the right-of-way couldn't be designated on the northwest side of the parcel?
Through the chair, so there's a couple different things that the planning department considers when requiring right-of-way dedication. One being simply that any lot or tract shown on a subdivision has to fully front right-of-way. So Tract A and B are going to be provided legal access through the right-of-way dedications along Bonnie Lane Road and East 140th Avenue. The reason that we did not require right-of-way dedication on the western end or the northern end is because there's currently 4 municipal rights-of-way that lead to the western end of the property. Those would be Laconia Drive, our own lane, Rabbit Hill Drive, and East 140th Avenue. So adequate right-of-way to access Track C is provided in addition to the right-of-way dedication along Bonnie Lane Road and East 140th Avenue in the southern end.
Okay, so the reason then is you don't want to landlock Track A and Track B, correct?
That's correct. Track A and Track B would be provided legal access through this right-of-way dedication. But furthermore, we just also don't want to be overburdensome in the right-of-way dedications that we are proposing. We want to make sure that those are reasonable and in accordance with the official streets and highways plan.
I mean, while I've got you here, can you speak to, the salmon concerns? That really kind of hit me with Beth's testimony. Got a biologist from the state saying it would be bad news to build a road over that area. Was that taken into consideration, or when does that come into play?
So anytime that there is a road crossing over any stream, the municipality is not the only say. That's the Army Corps of Engineers if it's waters of the state. If it's fish habitat, then the state Fish and Game is going to be brought into that decision as well. We do have, in terms of where the trails are going to go, in conditions 4 and 5, further consultation with Fish and Game on that matter. So they will be consulted.
Okay, then the other question I had for you is, hearing that the proposed trail locations are not finalized and kind of knowing this is kind of a trail-heavy part of town, and lots of, considerations around that, is it appropriate that we approve a plat where the trail locations are not finalized? And I just feel like the public doesn't have adequate notice of what's being proposed if the trail locations aren't finalized.
Through the chair, so oftentimes in plans we'll show a line where we want a trail to go, but it may not be practical or feasible to put the trail in that location. This is why there's also built-in protections within code, and specifically talking about the wildlife management corridor section, that requires us to consult with Fish and Game anytime you're within 200 feet of designated streams, Rabbit Creek being one of them. So given the topography on site, given that this is a wildlife management corridor, there is additional work that needs to be done that may have not been able to be done when those precedent plans, those 4 plans that I mentioned earlier that show the trail in this alignment, may not have been able to be done at that time.
Okay, and then prior to any development, would the water course mapping survey happen, or does that happen before the final plat is recorded?
So through the chair, that's condition number 8 on page 7 of the staff report, which is resolved with Watershed Management Services, the location of streams and drainage ways on property. So that will be done prior to recording of the final plat.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board for the petitioner? So, as the chair, I have to wait for everybody else. But I'm also a member of the Platting Board, so now I'm going to step off as the chair, and I'm going to step on as a member of the Platting Board, and I'm going to ask the petitioners some questions. First question is, there is a 33 section line easement on the side of M1, and there is also a 50-foot section line easement on the south side of M1 to M4. And you are dedicating 25 foot of right-of-way on the Bonnie Lane inside the lot, and you're dedicating 25 feet of right-of-way on the inside of the lot. Could you explain the purpose of the section line easement and why you're matching with right-of-way on inside the lot?
I would say the purpose of the section line easement is subject to a little bit of debate, but I think there's the view that the city would have the right to build a road in these section line easements once they are established. These laws date back to the early 1900s, late 1800s. But anyways, they were originally designed or created for access for the purposes of mining And over time, it's generally now interpreted as providing access to road building. But there's never been like a definitive thing saying you have to provide a road built to muni standards in a section line easement. It could be as simple as a horse trail. But part of the idea, though, is that the city has the right to go in there and build a road if need be. A lot of times they don't. But we still have to acknowledge that these section line easements exist as part of our platting action. The right-of-way that we're giving up on the Mills property is basically just a requirement from the city. It's like, we think we need 25 feet, okay, 25 feet. And we think we need 30 feet, we give up 30 feet. Does that answer your question?
Well, I guess where I'm going is it's 33 feet to the side of both the east side and then 33 feet to the west side, a total of 66 for the right-of-way, typically, right? Okay,
In this situation, this section line easement only exists on one side of the section line. So there's 33 feet on the east side, and then there's no 33 feet on the west side.
And so essentially, you've worked with the planning department and reduced it down to 25 so that there's at least right-of-way on both sides of the section line?
That's correct. Exactly. So that there's a right-of-way, an existing right-of-way already in the section line easement. Then there's a new right-of-way of 25 feet on the west side.
So that both the lots on either west or east bear the
burden of
the burden of the right-of-way.
You're right, right. Essentially the same thing on the south side.
So Tract A needs access, right? So we're making sure that it's not landlocked, is that correct?
That's correct.
And dedicating, in fairness, right away on the west side of the section line.
That's correct.
Tract B currently is walk-in?
Yes, it's currently walk-in. Typically, it's our understanding that the current owners go down Bonnie Lane Road, park on the property, shown as, Tract A on the preliminary plat. And then some of the people stay there for, say, a day or two. And some of the people walk down to Tract B and hang out on Tract B for a day or two.
So Tract B, were it to some sort of access be developed from 140th would be the easiest and most practicable access?
Yes.
Versus going down Bonnie Lane, across Rabbit Creek, and then through the steeper portions of the eastern half of Tract C.
Correct. If anyone would pull a permit on Tract B to build a home, they would have to come down 140th with a Muni-approved access to get the permit approved.
Yeah, I think that'd be preferable to going down Bonnie Lane Road and crossing the creek.
Thank you. That's all I have. Any other questions before we close? Thank you, gentlemen. That closes public testimony for this case. What is the will of the body? We'll need a motion. And I will note that the planning department staff has has the proposed amendments of items 2 and 3, you can simply use those proposed amendments rather than pushing the first as written and then bringing the proposed. Whatever you choose is to make your amendment. The motion has been by Ryan Mormon. Do we have a second? It's been seconded by Mr. Gould. Mr. Mormon, would you state your motion, please?
Through the chair, I make a motion to approve plating case S12713 for 24 months subject to condition 1 through 9 on page 6 and 7 of the staff report, with amendments to conditions number 2 and 3.
And would you speak to your motion, please?
I would say after reviewing the staff report and department recommendations, I am in favor of approving this case.
Would anybody else like to speak to the motion?
I'll speak to it. You know, I'm going to be a very hesitant yes on this. I'm troubled by a lot of the public testimony. I do appreciate going to 4 community councils and taking that extra effort. I do think a lot of the concerns are concerns that will be addressed for a later day. When development happens, the road is going to be evaluated before the plat records. The water course survey will be done, and so that's before this plat finalizes and actually records. So I see our approval as a preliminary approval, but not the last step in this process. So that gives me some comfort. I do really appreciate all of the public comments and the public testimony that came out tonight, and I thought you guys did an excellent job voicing your points, but I do think that the majority of the points are points for a later day, later development, things that we don't have the ability to answer right now because they're not at issue yet. I do hope the planning department and the muni and the agencies take some of these criticisms to heart and really think about what we're doing up in the hillside and what we're doing in Rabbit Creek, because there's a lot of sensitive areas up there, and I am disappointed in the lack of that being addressed in this process, quite frankly. So that's where I'm at on this. I wish there was an alternative. I wish we could table this and discuss it more and get more information. But that's where I'm at.
This is Zach Young. I'd like to speak briefly to the motion.
Go ahead,
in
Zach.
order.
Please do your best to speak clearly.
Doing as best I can here. I will be supporting this motion. That being said, I do want to note and thank all of the individuals that came and spoke here. I think that it is a very serious concern that we make sure that we are doing our due diligence when we are installing roads within the municipality, especially in these rural areas with very sensitive water tables that have adranodous salmon streams. That being said, I also firmly believe that it's the right of the petitioner to subdivide their lot within the legal parameters that they have covered. So that being said, when further development is proposed, that will be the time for these concerns to be brought forward for the table. So I hope that the individuals that came forward and gave testimony understand that this action of the planning board, should we vote to approve this, is not us disregarding those concerns, but rather saying that those concerns are for a different time where an actual road would have to be put in. At the end of the day, it's the right of this landowner to subdivide the land as is consistent with the municipality code. That is why I will be supporting this amendment, or this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach.
And this is Sam Laffey, if I could also make a comment.
Go ahead, Sam.
Thank you. I agree with what fellow member of the board, Zach, just had to say. I do agree that it is the right, the legal right under the laws of the municipality, or ordinances rather, and the laws of the state of Alaska, that an owner of property can subdivide their land as they see fit, as long as it follows the relevant ordinances and regulations promulgated by the city, borough, and state of Alaska. I was hesitant at the beginning of this, but after hearing all the testimony, and thank you for everybody who testified, I believe that this plat would be an appropriate course of action for this body to take at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Is there any other discussion or findings?
So I do agree with the petitioner and the discussion that the owner does have the right to subdivide, as well as I agree with the surrounding property owners saying that, hey, there's only 25 feet being dedicated over here, and on the surrounding property owners, they got a 33-foot section line easement, which means that, yes, the muni or whomever is developing can push the road more on their side of the line, as well as down through the 50-foot section line easement and over. I would have liked to see a dedication of right-of-way along the western side, partially because if there is any houses being built or any development being built, folks could come along. Yes, there are 4 access points, but it seems like, yeah, maybe they could bring in a driveway or use their other portions of their property. So I'm a hesitant approval on this. I do think that dedicating more right-of-way, at least minimum of 30 feet, is practical for, given the topography and the terrain. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there any other findings or discussion? So again, as the chair, I'm also a member of the Platting Board, so now I'm going to step aside as the chair for a minute. I'm going to give you my findings as succinctly as I can. One of my findings are that the purpose of this action is to provide access to 2 smaller lots, not to build roads on them. So they are subdividing these tracts into small 5-acre tracts, tract A and B, and because they are having to subdivide, they are required to dedicate right-of-way. So they are dedicating right-of-way, and I agree with Zach's comments and Sam's and the others that have spoken here, that the owner has the right to subdivide. And again, the planning department, I believe that they have acted as a fiduciary responsibility as they can, faithful to the municipality process. So the findings are that they've dedicated right-of-way within the lot that meets the requirements of what's being dedicated. The larger tract C would have to be subdivided for it to be utilized as housing or anything else. So if they ever do, then they would have to go through a further platting action and further negotiation with everybody to figure out what that looks like. That's for a future process. What they're doing here is providing access to 2 lots. and one access is being provided along Bonnie Lane, which has already been there. It has problems. It's clearly that it's not great. There is no road access to Tract B, and if they ever do try to put in road access, likely it'll come from 140th. These are no longer opinions. These are just my thoughts. Thank you. I'll go back to being the chair now. Any further discussion before we vote? Please vote.
This is Sam Laffey. I vote in favor of the motion.
Thanks, Sam. Zach?
I vote in favor of the motion.
Thank you, Zach.
Okay. Pardon my folding. That motion has passed. We will move on to the next case. Case S12716. May we have staff's presentation, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I request a 5-minute recess? We've been hearing this case for roughly 2 hours. Might be appropriate.
Thank you for the reminder. I appreciate that. Gentlemen on the phones, Sam and Zach, you guys there?
Yes, I am here. Yes, I'm here.
Great. We will restart after our break. Thank you. Okay. So now we're going to have presentations for case number S12716. Please give us your presentation.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a request for a subdivision of 8 lots into one tract of land and to vacate a 20-foot wide by 240-foot wide right-of-way alley that was originally dedicated for Plat C-209. There is an abbreviated plat approval, case S12715, that creates lots 9B and 9C. The subdivision plat of this one tract of land is the second step in a 3-step process in consolidating the lots for a commercial fragment lot site plan that will ultimately create 2 commercial fragment lots for future development. The proposed vacation of right-of-way will be replaced by a dedicated 20-foot wide public use easement. The applicant is also requesting a waiver from the requirement to provide a geotechnical investigation at the time of preliminary plat approval. This waiver is requested as a full geotechnical report will be developed as part of the building design and permitting process. The application narrative states that the owner has an existing geotechnical report associated with Lot 9A of Block 41, and that the renovation of 601 West 5th Avenue building. However, some of the building on the rest of the block are still in the process of demolition at the time of plat approval. Once the process is complete, access for test borings can be obtained and a full geotechnical report can be prepared for review and submittal to the building department. The applicant anticipates that the report will be finalized in late spring, summer of this year. The planning department supports the request for the waiver of the geotechnical report and for it to be submitted under the building permit review process. No municipal reviewing agencies had objections to the proposed vacation of the preliminary plat. 455 public hearing notices were mailed out on March 22nd, 2023, and the Downtown Community Council did not provide comment. I'd like to address the approval criteria for the right-of-way vacation. Standard number 1, staff finds that this standard is met. The proposed public use easement will maintain public access while allowing the space to function with the redevelopment project. Development is planning to relocate most of the utilities to surrounding rights-of-way except for electric and communication lines. The public use easement will allow access to these utilities. Standard number 2, this portion of alleyway is not part of the official streets and highways plan, and thus that standard is met. Standard 3, staff finds that standard is met. The subject right-of-way is not located on a half-mile grid. Standard 4, again met. The subject right-of-way is not located on a quarter-mile grid. Standard 5, staff believes that standard is met. The property that is accessed, all property in the area is accessed from other dedicated right-of-way, and the PUE will allow access for vehicles and pedestrians while maintaining access to utilities. And standard number 6, staff finds that standard to be met. The vacation will not result in a realignment of any existing rights-of-way and does not impact existing traffic circulation. So with that said, staff recommends approval of the request for a waiver from AMC 21.08.030I1, the requirement for a geotechnical investigation at the time of preliminary plat submittal, approval of the request for vacation of the 20-foot wide by 240-foot wide right-of-way alley portion dedicated by the plat C-209, and approval of the plat for 24 months subject to the conditions listed on pages 7 and 8 of the staff packet. And as always, I will be available to answer any questions the board may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Whitfield. Do you have any questions of staff? Mr. Gould.
Could you define fragment for me? Fragment lot, whatever that means?
Yes, thank you, sir, Mr. Gould. Commercial fragment lot, and we're actually going to be dealing with the commercial fragment lot portion of this project with the next case that we'll be hearing. But I'm happy to talk about it right now, as these two cases are very much related. A commercial fragment lot is where you have an underlying parent parcel, a legal subdivided lot, wherein over top of that parent parcel you have, to a certain extent, fictitious or unsurveyed lot lines called fragment lots that sit over top of that parent parcel. These fragment lots can be sold fee simple. What it does, however, is it ties, in a fragment lot site plan, it ties all of the fragment lots and development of those fragment lots together in the form of essentially an association, so that anything that's done anything that's done on any one of the lots requires a new site plan to be recorded, and all owners of fragment lots within that site plan to be party to that re-recording. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Any other questions of staff? Great. Would the petitioner please come forward? State your name, and if you'd like to reserve any of your time for rebuttal, please.
Good evening. My name is Laquita Chmielowski. I'm the Land Use Planning Manager at Dell, and I'm here tonight representing Peach Holdings for this replat. And I would like to reserve any remaining time for rebuttal. So as we mentioned, we're here tonight talking about the platting action to create the commercial tract for Block 41. So as you're probably all familiar, the block is located in the heart of downtown between 5th and 4th Avenue and G and F Street. It includes almost the entire block except for Polar Gifts, which is located on Tract 1 at the corner of F Street and 4th Avenue. It is under different ownership, so that is why it's not included. So this is part of a series of plats that we're trying to accomplish to move redevelopment of this block forward. Most of you have probably seen what was the former Key Bank building renovations that are nearing complete, and this building's now known as the 601 West 5th Avenue project. And so the next phase of development is to include a parking garage, hotel, and corporate housing that would be towers that sit on top of the parking garage. And then, of course, ground floor retail and restaurants and other amenities that would be shared. So, as staff mentioned, this is the second step. It's to create the commercial tract so that we can create fragment lots to support the development. The development is, all the parts and pieces of the development are tied together because they support one another. So, for example, the parking garage that's being planned will support not only the hotel and corporate housing, but also the office space that's in 601 West 5th. So just, this is in your staff packet as well. It's just the preliminary plat showing the vacation of the portion of the right-of-way, as well as the interior lot lines to create that commercial tract. And as staff mentioned, there are water, sewer, electric, communication lines and gas lines in the alleyway. We are in the process of coordinating with the utilities to relocate the water and sewer lines as well as the gas lines to the adjacent streets. That work's scheduled to happen this summer. We have been in communications with the communication and telephone line utilities, and we are talking about putting their utilities in conduits that would remain in the alley. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions of staff for the petitioner?
I only originally was just trying to find, and I'm sure I'm just missing it, the notes for the downtown community council meeting. It said it was attached as an appendix, and maybe you could point me to where it's at in the staff packet.
I also didn't see it in there. There was an appendix 7 that had the notes from the community council meeting, but I didn't see it in there either.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Then I guess, can you tell us about it? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so we attended the community council meeting. They're very excited about this development and what it means to downtown, and so there wasn't any objections to the plat at the meeting.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions of staff? Or the petitioner, sorry? Great, thank you. We're now opening the hearing for public testimony. Anybody wishing to testify, please come forward, state your name, and spell the name for your record. I see no one. No one's calling in, right? Okay, no one's called in. All right, do you have any rebuttal?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any final questions before we close public testimony? Public testimony for this case is now closed. The decision now rests with the board. Can we have a motion, please? It's been moved by Ms. Welton and seconded by Ms. Wessel. Ms. Welton, would you state your motion, please?
Yes, I move to approve plat case S12716 to subdivide 8 lots into one tract for 24 months, subject to the conditions 1 through 5 on page 7 and 8 of the staff report. Through the chair, can I speak to my motion?
Would you speak to your motion, please?
Thank you. I'm going to be in favor, voting in favor of this motion. The lack of any communication from the downtown community council tells me that they're likely in favor of it, because usually with downtown community council, in my experience, if they don't like something, they definitely say they don't like it. So I'm taking that as a positive sign. I'm also taking it as a positive sign that we saw no negative public comments in the record, and that staff and the agencies in the muni are supportive of the plat.
Great, thank you. Do we have any other findings? Well, we'll vote, but wait, this was, now are we in the right order? Yes, okay. Oh, no, we're not.
Well,
Through the chair, point of order real quick. You've made a motion to approve the plat, and that's fine. I just ask that you go back and take action on the 2 other items, the waiver of the geotech report and the vacation of right-of-way. Thank you.
We will do that. Sorry, I got ahead of ourselves. All right. But we can go ahead and vote on this, and then.
Zach, how do you vote?
This is Sam. I vote in favor of the motion.
Thanks, Sam. Zach, are you there?
I am here. I am voting in favor of this motion.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. That motion has passed. So let's go back to A. May I have a motion? It's been moved by Mr. Ryan Mormon and seconded by Ms. Jana Wilson. Mr. Mormon, would you like to state the motion?
Yes, through the chair, I motion for the approval of the request for the waiver to AMC 21.08.0301.1 seismically induced ground failure hazard geotech investigation subject to the following conditions. 1, submit a complete geotechnical investigation to development services at the time of the building permit.
Excellent. Would you like to speak to your motion, please?
I'm following staff recommendations, and the motion seems to fall in line.
Is there any other findings?
I would make additional findings that prior to, if I understood it correctly, prior to the building being constructed, there would be a final geotechnical investigation done, and also that there is an existing geotechnical report that the owner has. I think I heard that correctly before. And so requiring yet another one seems kind of duplicative and not efficient.
Thank you. Anything else? All right, let's vote.
This is Sam Lappy. I vote in favor of the motion.
Thanks, Sam. Zach?
This is Zach Young. I vote in favor.
Thanks, Zach.
That motion has passed. May I have a motion, please? It's been moved by Ms. Jana Wilson and seconded by Ms. Stacy Wessel. Ms. Wilson, would you state your motion, please?
Thank you. Through the chair, I would move to approve the request of the vacation of a 20-foot by 240-foot right-of-way dedicated per plat C-209, subject to condition 1 on page 7 of the staff report.
And would you like to speak to your motion, please? Oh.
Yes, I would like to speak to my motion. Staff has reiterated that there were no agencies that expressed objection to vacating this right-of-way, and the utility companies will have the opportunity to review the proposed plat and request any easements that are necessary, which seems appropriate. And there was no public comment or comment from the community council that voiced any concern to this, and so with no concerns from the reviewing agencies, the staff, or the public, I see no reason to not approve it.
Thank you. Do we have any other findings? Then let's vote.
Sam, how do you vote?
I vote in favor of the motion.
Thanks, Sam. Zach?
This is Zach Young. I vote in favor of the motion.
Thanks, Zach.
That motion has passed. So we will move on to our last case for the evening. Staff, would you give us the presentation for case S12717?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll make this brief. This preliminary plat and site plan is a request in accordance with AMC 21.03.200E to create 2 commercial fragment lots. This request is being made to accommodate the redevelopment of the Block 41 project. We just heard the associated case, S12716, for a preliminary plat approval that would create the 1 tract of land which establishes the parent parcel that the proposed fragment lots are based on. Staff has requested that the Staff has requested a condition of approval that the plat S12716 is recorded first, thus legally creating Tract 1 before the final plat approval, before final approval of this proposed commercial fragment lot site plan. Proposed fragment lot 1 will encompass the 601 West 5th Avenue Key Bank building at the corner of 5th Avenue and F Street. Fragment lot 2 will consist of the remainder of Block 41, which is planned for future development. Because the site plan has not been finalized for fragment lot 2, an updated site plan will be required when the final building design and permitting process begins. AMC 2103-200E requires the commercial fragment lot site plan to show building footprints, parking areas, landscaping, driveway access to the property, site drainage, any fragment lots that to be contained within the commercial tract require proposed declarations, covenants, and restrictions binding on the property designated as the commercial tract. Staff is requesting a condition of approval to provide a copy of the declarations prior to recording of the plat. The site plan shows a building footprint for the existing building for fragment lot 1. At this time, no proposed building, as I mentioned before, are shown on fragment lot 2. The petitioner will be required to amend the site plan when the petitioner moves forward with the development of that fragment lot 2. In commercial tract fragment lot site plans, common access easements are addressed through the declarations, covenants, and restrictions, and not on the site plan. The traffic engineering department commented that the proposed commercial redevelopment of this site requires a traffic impact analysis addressing access and impacts to adjacent signal timing, pedestrian, and transit modes of travel along the block within the central business district. Staff is requesting this as a condition of approval. So with that said, staff would like to recommend approval of the commercial tract plat and site plan for 24 months subject to the conditions listed on pages 5 and 6 of your staff packet, and I'll be available for any questions. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Whitfield. Do we have any questions of staff? Great. Would the petitioner please come forward? State your name.
Hi, my name is Laquita Chmielowski. I'm planning manager at Dell. So this is the next sequence of plats to get us to where we need to be with the fragment lots. As staff mentioned, the Key Bank or 601 West 5th will be on its own fragment lot, and the remainder of the block will be on a separate fragment lot. And I guess I'm happy to answer any questions. I don't have anything else.
Thank you. Do we have any questions of the petitioner? Thank you.
Thanks.
I will now open public testimony. Is there anyone that would like to come forward and testify? Seeing none, do you have any final comments? Thank you.
I just have one final
go ahead.
question. So just to ensure, you discussed this at the downtown community council meeting too, and the reaction was similar to the first case, I assume, but I just
Yes, yeah, and I guess just to add on, we've had many meetings over the last few years with the community council talking about this development, including the one that's required for the platting.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions? We'll close public testimony then. Thank you. So, what is the will of the body? Can we have a motion, please? It's been moved by Ms. Welton and seconded by Ms. Wessel. Would you care to speak to your motion?
Yes, through the chair, I move to approve.
State your motion.
Yeah, I move to approve to subdivide one proposed tract of land into two commercial track fragment lots subject to the conditions 1 through 5 on page 5 and 6 of the staff report.
Excellent. And then would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Yes, similar to the findings in the previous associated case, it appears any agency concerns were addressed in the conditions drafted by staff. Public comment were nil, so I take that as a positive sign. And Downtown Community Council did not object to this, and it sounds like they had good community engagement, and it seems like this is necessary for their development to move forward.
Any other findings? I will like to make it a point that the traffic engineering department has indicated that they will require an impact analysis, but that will be being requested as part of this recommendation, and so we're following those recommendations. With that, let's vote.
This is Sam Roth. I vote for approval.
Thank you, Sam.
I vote to approve.
Thanks, Zach.
Sure. That motion has passed. Okay. That is our final case for the evening. And apparently we don't have any persons to be heard, nor reports. Any board member comments? I don't have any, so thank you. So then I move to adjourn. Thank you very much. At 9:24.